Welcome to I Have Something to Say, where unfiltered opinions meet raw authenticity. If you're tired of the same old canned answers and crave genuine conversations about real issues, then you've landed in the right spot. So buckle up for a roller coaster of diverse perspectives. Yours truly, Sami Jimenez-Marrero, and my co-host, Chris Majocha, will dive headfirst into topics that impact our daily lives. From the boardrooms to the streets, get ready to hear real people cut through the BS and deliver the discussions you've been waiting for. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. And this is round 2 of Issues2Impact. And so here we are with Chris Majocha, with Dr. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel, and with Valerie Solomon. And I'm excited because now we're going to talk about why in the world are we jumping to a new project and a new podcast, and what that means for us in terms of the impact that we want to have in the community, right? And so I got to tell you, it made sense to me when we started having conversations about launching Issues2Impact, because I've experienced it firsthand, right? That frustration of repeat problem. And where do I turn, right? Where do I turn for advice, for counsel, for a trusted lens and an honest lens that tells me you're doing it all wrong. You need to, even if it means start from square one and give me the steps, 1, 2, 3. And so, yeah, I don't know about you all, but at least that was my initial reaction with coming up with this concept, right? And you guys really proposing this concept of creating a platform where all of us as subject matter experts in our respective areas, and even a little bit of overlap, right? And that's always okay, can weigh in on some of our peers' issues.
I know when we first started talking about it, I think that the thing that initially attracted me to doing something like this was we really all talked about how many people were experiencing or coming to us with the same issues. And they were things that we all had dealt with, right? And so to me, it was just the scalability of being able to reach more people. And also being able to partner with some other folks too, right? Because I have the experiences that I have and the lens that I have. It to me seemed so much more of service to others to be able to partner with a group of people who can tackle a problem from so many different vantage points.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I thought about the podcast, it's really us looking at common challenges that I think a lot of us as organizational leaders or entrepreneurs experience. And just to echo something you said, Sami, I don't think we're ever starting at ground zero. We're never ever starting over. I mean, we're bringing with us our expertise, our existing knowledge, the lessons learned. And here is just a bigger and better opportunity to learn. If we look at challenges as a real opportunity for us to learn. And the wonderful thing about this podcast is that we're looking at the challenges or opportunities to learn from different lenses, right? And so where Sami tends to focus on marketing and Val is focused on nonprofit or service, and Chris might come from that creative content development standpoint, I bring the lens of not necessarily HR, because people always think I do HR. It is industrial organizational psychology. We are not HR. And it's related, right? But really looking at people within the workspace, how they work, why they work, what motivates them, how to improve their performance. So you have us as a panel to really dive into those issues from varied perspectives and give you a more comprehensive opportunity to grow and apply it within the organization. So that gets me excited.
Awesome. And I'll just add that I think we talked about on the last episode about how we, in a way, are each other's a board of directors, each other's tribe. And I think one of the things that is very common, at least in my experience, is when somebody comes to me for advice directly or via one of you or somebody else in my network, it's always, I'm being asked from a content, a marketing, a creative standpoint. But then if it's like a question, let's say about development, I'll call Val and say, hey, Val, would you mind talking to so-and-so? But it's more like, in a sense, kind of being like, not passed off, but you're going to one person to a next, but, and understanding from their particular specialty or strength or experience. But, speaking to person two might bring up more questions from the person you just talked to, person one. And when you go through that chain, it can get very confusing. So the exciting thing for me about this podcast was more the holistic approach, in that all of us are kind of, pseudo in a room, in an online room, a virtual space here, but with somebody who is asking these questions that I'm probably going to call, one of you three anyway to help assist me with it. But in a sense, we're all in the same room, all listening to the same questions, all listening to each other's feedback. And that way we can kind of give a holistic approach to really help somebody, through a challenge. And, something you mentioned, we've been through it, we've done it. I've worked, nonprofits in corporate space, in higher education. And, there's different challenges in each, but a lot of times those challenges can overlap and are very much similar. And I think there's just, a lot of value in having multiple people with varied experiences in the room, sitting at the table together, bringing diverse approaches and, really tackling an issue all together. And to me, that's where real success and real breakthroughs happen.
If I could just jump in, but I jump in for a second, because as Chris was talking, I thought of a relay race where you're handing the baton off to different people. We're all working together to finish that race. But the added benefit of being in the room with the four of us, to your point, Chris, is that someone may call you and you refer them to Val, and Val may refer them to Semi, and Semi may refer them to me. And we each might spend 4 hours with them. We are now compressing and consolidating and maximizing that time into one, hour where they can just get all the information one time and hit the ground running and move on. So to your point, Sam.
No, totally. And the thing is, and why is that so important, right? Because, okay, so now we're gonna, all right.
Peel back the onion.
I'll get there. What you just said, Xaulanda, is so important, because I gotta tell you that one of my biggest pet peeves is being out and about and facing a problem, or, I'm in these spaces sometimes and I'm like, how I can get there. Like, I'm surrounded by people that I know have the freaking answer. Mm-hmm. And why don't you share? Everybody's like hoarding. It's like, no, para mí, for me. And it's so annoying and it drives me nuts, right? And so it seems easy to us now because we've been in this game for so long that we have each other. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you, a lot of people, especially startups or people that are just recent founders or people that have an idea, don't even know where to start, right? They haven't even taken that first step, are really in yearning, right? For some kind of guidance. And you go out there and you start looking for that tribe, for that personal board of directors. And it's like, nope, wall, no, stop right there. And you feel like you're not getting anywhere, or feel that your idea has no value because no one's responding to what you're saying or providing you with the resources or the access or some kind of at least a tip or a connection or something. And so then you become deflated and say, okay, so then, I'm no good. It's not good enough. It's not worthy. Maybe it's just me, that I think this is a great idea, but no, it's probably a really great idea. But then you have those people that just don't share information. And so we want to eliminate those types of barriers so that people can get going with their brilliance and with their great ideas and with the impact that they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what you just said, like, spurred on, like, which soapbox do I choose to get on right now? Like, it just spurred on so much for me, right? Like, there was a point in my career where I was young and just like learning. I've always been one who wants to try to learn more professionally. Even in this space right now, I'm hoping to learn from the guests that we have on our podcast, and I believe I will. But I've always been in the mindset of learning. But when I was younger, even when I had 5, 6, I had more experience than some other people in the room because I looked young or I came in humbly, right? I came in not knowing everything, posturing as though I am, some level of expertise, even though I'm here to learn, I'm here to help, and I'm here to serve. Just coming into a room with that, or to a table with that mindset, I think set me back a little bit. And it was something that I had to overcome in my career, just looking like the young kid who doesn't know what's going on. And I'm like, I have a decade of experience in this. Maybe listen at least to what I have to say. You don't have to do what I say, but my opinion or my experience has value. And there were people who invested in me. There were people who helped me learn the best way to advocate for myself. And I feel like it's my responsibility to turn around and do that, open the door, pull a seat up to the table. But even more so than that, if you are not welcome at this table, then I'm not going to sit at it either. Let's go sit at your table. And that's probably in the last 15, my career is about 15, 20 years now. In the last 5 to 6 years, I've made a specific effort because I feel like I'm at that part of my career where I can say, you know what? If I'm not being heard here and I can see you not listening to other valuable voices, then none of us are welcome here. And there are so many young leaders right now who are building their own table, pulling up their own chairs, putting that in a boardroom and getting work done. And I have found so much value working with those folks versus begging for a little bit of time somewhere else. And so over the course of my career, I have just been very, very thankful for people who have invested in me. And I wanted to turn around and do that for other people. And so, Sami, the things that you were just saying and remarking on about, about how we move things forward, how we have an impact, and people gatekeeping, I think that is one of those universal experiences that we are going to find no matter who we bring on this podcast. They are going to have had that experience. And I know that nobody in this virtual room is willing to put up with that. Like, we're done. We don't have time for that. Let's move on. We got work to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. You got me started, Val. Okay. So 2 major points for me. I am, just a little sidebar, I have become a fan and a groupie of Carolyn A. Wanga. And she says, who you are is who you are. If you cannot be who you are, where you are, then change where you are so you can be who you are. And I think part of this podcast is, to your point, Val, maybe you were not at the right table. Where you are did not allow you to be who you are. Well, darn it, you can be who the hell you want to be in this space. Because we want you to be real. We're going to have real conversations. Some of them are going to be amazing and exciting, and some of them are going to roll up our sleeves and get down and dirty, because that's just the way life is, right? And so the other point I wanted to make is to your, where you were talking about, you were just coming in humble, you were just coming in learning, and you were young. I'm Dr. Xaulanda, and I'm still having a little bit of an identity crisis, because all of a sudden I've become doctor and I'm all of a sudden an expert. Well, the expert came with years and years of experience before I got the doctorate, right? And so I bring that up because I think we need to approach conversations in the workspace, personally, in the community, from a curiosity and a willingness to learn. I have millennials on my team that if I came from the perspective of, oh, I'm the older, more experienced one, and I'm Dr. Xaulanda, you need to learn from me, I would not be open to learning from them. And they bring such amazing perspectives on life and work that just helps me to grow. So well, regardless of your age, regardless of your background, regardless of your experience, regardless, whatever, you are bringing a perspective to this conversation that's going to make it evolve. And so this is the table for you. Come as you are. We are ready to have the conversations and let's rock and roll. Right, Chris?
That's right, Xaulanda. And I'll just add that I think one of the really important things, and this kind of goes back to, even Val, what you were saying about kind of being the younger person in the room trying to get your voice heard. A lot of the challenge is having that confidence and knowing how to back up that idea, to validate it or to frame it in a perspective or in a way that that person, the recipient, is going to see the most perceived value. And so that kind of even ties back to, again, having all of us in the room at the same time is oftentimes we don't know what we don't know. So we don't know what the right questions are to ask. And that's where I think these unique perspectives and different angles coming in, where if there's a question about, organizational leadership or about marketing or about fundraising, how does content creation play into that? How do these all intersect? And oftentimes it's, I started my videography business, and I will tell you, without the data or having done the research on how to back up what I was presenting, all I'm doing is going to businesses saying, hey, I can make you a really pretty video and people are going to see it online. It'll be awesome. And they're like, cool, well, I'm not going to invest in that. But if I can go in and say, hey, I've made these videos in this specific way because it drives results. Here's how the traction happens. Here's what the trends are happening on social media, the right platforms, et cetera. Then you're going in with that business case that to a business owner, an investor, or somebody in leadership will kind of see past that creative lens that you're trying to come through and say, like, oh, this is valuable to me. But it takes having that information, that research, the ability to build up the tools in your tool belt and feel empowered to go into those conversations. And hopefully that's what, this can kind of be a microcosm of that, to be able to tackle an issue and say, hey, I'm going to have to face, these board members or these people in, senior roles, and I'm going to have to go and sell them on my idea. What does each person want to hear that is going to be valuable to them to make this a success for me? So it's selfless, but also selfish, and you can get your ideas across if you just know the right way to position your offer. And so I'm excited to dive in and, the four of us really help people define that and feel empowered to go and tackle whatever they're coming on here to have us address.
Yeah,
Can I just jump in because
we're talking about I'm sorry, Val, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what Chris was talking about just sparks something, and Xaulanda too. Like, what we're talking about is popping into within a person's problem, within a person's career path, that had I had something like this 7, 8, 10 years ago, even to this day, because of 10 years of people rolling their eyes or exasperated sighs in boardrooms, I still have, even today, when someone says to me, that's a really great idea, I think we should follow up with that, I still have something in the back of my mind that says, do they really think that? Right? There's lasting impacts to sitting at that table or dealing with rooms that aren't very welcoming. And I think we can all acknowledge that had I had a few extra little bit of training about this or advice about that, the things that you were talking about, Chris, not just the what that has to happen, but how do we do it? What's the best way to maximize? How to recognize that is not the room to pitch in and turn around and find your people, right? If I had that 10 years ago, I think that we could have saved a lot of, I'll call it imposter syndrome. I know I have faced. But think about the things that we're going to be able to do for our guests, where we can kind of turn them down a path where they can avoid a whole lot of that. That to me is very key. I think that's something that we've all talked about, which is there are things in our past professional lives we would love to go back and kind of redo, knowing what we know now. Well, now we can't redo it for ourselves, but we're going to help other people be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that we might have had.
Totally. And as I'm listening to both of you, what comes to mind is that aspect of gathering information, right? And what that requires is really a good listener and someone that can really probe. And I like to compare it to triage, like when we go to the hospital, right? And we go through that triage, that all they do is just pose questions to try to gather as much information to kind of pinpoint what the issue might be before you proceed, right? With treatment, with figuring out whether you need to be admitted into the hospital or what have you. And so listening is a key component of this entire exercise, and really knowing how to ask the right questions, which is going to be our role really, to then sit there and say, okay, now tell us. We want to know where you're at, right? We want to try to benchmark or level set or figure out what might be causing you to be stuck, or might be causing you to not feel like you're advancing or getting to where you need to go. And so I know that I shared, right, a mutual friend that we have, that just yesterday we met because they need a space to meet. And after we went, and saw the space at Casa Culture and agreed that, the activities are going to take place there, we started talking. I'm like, hey, whatever happened to, these programs that you had, right? They're amazing, because I've paid top dollar, right, to participate, but, I haven't renewed or haven't seen anything. And so I was told that, they just feel stuck, that everything's packaged, that they have all these offerings, that they've expanded the things that they're able to deliver, right, from a personal and professional development standpoint. And I started probing, oh, wow, really cool. Like what? And so then the list, definitely grew since 2 summers ago. And I'm like, so what's holding you back? So I started probing and listening and probing. And I'm like, okay, so you are doing that. Okay. And so do you have a platform online? Yes. Okay. And do you have do you do marketing, a social media team? And yes. I'm like, okay. And so what are your price points? We talked about that. So here I am asking the questions that I would normally ask a client, right? So I'm trying to think. So then I said, do you network? No. And I'm like, that's what's missing, right? You should be networking. And so and so then we went down that lane, right? And then how do you network? Because it's easy to say, oh, you need to network. Yeah, but then how the hell do I do that? If I don't do it, it's because clearly now I'm going to be stepping into this exercise that I have no idea on how to do, especially in groups or, just navigating. There's so many networking events, So then how do you find, like you said, Val, right? My people, how do you find, or at least my target, right? You need to find different types of groups until you find those are going to respond to what you have to offer. And so anyway, so that's just like a big thing that I see, that, that's my big why, is trying to get people unstuck. And it's through that exercise of just probing and asking what each one of us would ask our clients, our friends, our peers, other business owners, other founders, other leaders, right? And say, well, and then figure out in that triage process what's missing, and then say, that's the pain point. Okay, now let's treat it. Let's address it, right? And take with a lot of cariño and love and affection, just try to provide as much insight within this time frame to be able to alleviate the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you talk about pain points and networking, it's like you're speaking to me, Sami. That's one of the topics. If we get to it on the podcast, I'm going to impart some knowledge, but I'm also going to learn a whole lot. This is my tip for the day for anybody listening. My biggest leap forward that I made personally in networking was, this is what I do at every networking event. There's a lot of other things that go into this, but this is one thing that has always helped me. I go in, if they have coffee, if it's a morning thing, I get my cup of coffee and then I scan the room and I find the person on the side who's not speaking to anybody. And I go over and I say, hi, my name is Val. I also like to hang out by myself on the side. And then we start talking. So even if there's nothing else that is accomplished, we don't look like we were forced to come to this networking event on our own. And I feel better about that. And usually that breaks enough of the ice, not just for the other person, but for me too. I get very nervous going into those situations. And I think that leads me into what I want to talk about next, which is kind of a question for Xaulanda specifically, but also for everybody in our own like personal experiences. When you are talking to people, when you are working, helping them work through these issues, how much of the problem is the problem? And how much of the problem is the perspective that the person has of the problem? And I say that it's more of a question for Dr. Xaulanda because I feel like you work with that more specifically, professionally, and the rest of us kind of have to deal with that in every other things that we do. So I actually am here to learn in this moment. If you would share.
Well, I think, percentage wise, it varies depending on the individuals and depending on the circumstances. It's almost like looking at it from the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? If your mindset is one of, let me seek the opportunities, you tend to have a more positive spin on the situation and you're probably going to lean into it. However, if you're looking at it, you're saying, what's the problems that I have with all of this? You tend to retreat, right? And that's where a lot of people get stuck. So it's really helping. A lot of it is the person and their perspective on the issue that they're addressing. That really determines whether or not they lean in or retreat. And we want people on this podcast, we want to be able to help people to lean, right? Because if you're looking at it from the perspective of, okay, this may be a challenge. This may be a pain point. This may be hard. But one, I have support in this room. So I'm not doing this alone. Two, I have the different perspectives. So, I may not have looked at it from that angle. It's like taking something and looking at it from the top, the bottom, each side, rotating it, looking at it, and really trying to figure out all the angles, to Sammy's point, really asking those powerful questions and then coming up with viable solutions, right? It's one thing to come up with solutions that are pie in the sky, but those tend to be a little bit more long-term. We want people to walk away from our conversation with something or tangible ways of being able to implement solutions once they get off the call. And then we could always come back, right? And we can help them with the more long-term things, but it's really about those small successes and keeping it consistent and moving it forward. So it depends on the people and the situation, but those are some of the key tips that I would say, Val. Chris always has a wonderful, Buddhist perspective on things. So what are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, one of my, I usually run my content coaching clients through a couple of exercises. These are honestly really exciting for me just because I get to learn about people and their businesses in a unique way. But there's that theory or concept of having an alter ego. And so what I do is both for themselves personally and then for their business, basically create an alter ego that is the best version of themselves. And oftentimes that is framed from a position of what would that person do, basically opposite of what you're doing now, to get that best result. And then kind of a fun thing is have them do almost like an exercise where the role play and gossip about their current self from the perspective of their new role. And it's like, what does this person need to do to really kick it into gear and get to where they want to go? And when they frame it from the point of, a position of who they would want to be, it's amazing what kind of value comes out of that. And to do that, both to identify for yourself and then for your business, and then take them on the journey of kind of the concept of like two islands. You're on an island right now. That's where you are, where your business is. and you want to that's island A, and you want to get to island B. So island B has all these great things. You define what that is. And I think what our goal here on this podcast, and what I hope to do, is equip somebody with the understanding or the strategy to know whether they need to build a bridge to get across to that island, build a rowboat, if they need to, create a Trojan horse and do a sneak attack. How do you conquer and achieve your goal? But I think really the person is one of the biggest things. There's, I think one of the big examples, I always called it when I help people with their resumes and stuff, like you be your Sasha Fierce in the resume. So, you got Beyonce, but Beyonce becomes Sasha Fierce on stage. Or from a sports reference, there was a Bo Jackson, great football player, and he was asked, like, how was he so like lethal on the football field? And he said, Bo Jackson never played a down of football in his life. So what he did when he was young is he watched the Halloween movies with Jason, the Mike Myers mask, and basically he identified that when he was nervous to go play football, and he became that character. So he completely separated himself from the person who had to execute the task that he was trying to get to achieve his goal. And I just think that's a fun exercise with people, because to your point, Val, it is, in my experience, more so a person understanding themselves and their goal, and seeing if those even align. Because oftentimes when I do that exercise, what they say they want to do for their business and what they say who they want to be or what they want their business to be, I'm like, so those are two different things. And so how do we align that? What do we really want to do? And oftentimes it's a really, eye-opening or groundbreaking experience for them to say, oh, so I really should be moving in this direction because ultimately I want to do that. And, and you kind of can lose sight of the shiny objects of, oh, I need to be on this social media channel. I need to have a podcast. I need to, what have you. But is it working for you? Is it actually going to get you where you want to go to be the person that you ultimately want to be?
Yeah. And it takes that courage, right?
Yep.
To get this kind of insight, to be able to have that shift in mindset, to get that outside insight that then provokes or propels you to then do that self-reflection. And sometimes that's not easy, right? Yes, it's not easy. I mean, this last quarter of 2023, thank you, Xaulanda, right? I mean, I was like, call a friend. I was like, Mama, I know that you have your own business going on, but I need you. Come back to me. Come back to me. Like, reel her back into Urbander. Because I was like, I was facing like a mini crisis, right? Feeling just overwhelmed because I need to work on the business instead of in the business. I needed someone because I suck. Listen, people, I suck at managing people. I really do, right?
Manage people better.
I'm not good yet. She's not. I'm getting better.
I'm getting better every day.
Learning. I'm getting better every day. But I'm good with people. I love people. I'm great with people. I build relationships of trust. I hope, right, with people, and I'm all about connecting heart to heart, right, with people and collaborating and all of that good stuff. But managing and see, I'm very observant and I could analyze a whole bunch of things, but that chip needs, or that muscle needs exercising, right? I need to exercise that managing people and weaving together. Or maybe I don't. That's why I have Xaulanda, right? I'm like, why? Yes. You know what I'm saying? So where I'm getting at is sometimes that's the advice, right? How? So why do you feel like you have to be everything and all that needs to happen within whatever it is that you're doing, right? No. So then you need to learn how to delegate, find those people that can actually be part of the expanded team, and get you to where you need to be, right? And so then, that's part of this exercise is really being, again, I love that, Xaulanda, leaning in and having that change in mindset and knowing that you don't have to be all things to all people and that there's always an opportunity to learn or find the person that you can attach yourself to or bring on the team, right? To get you to where you need to be. And sometimes it's a very challenging exercise because you're like, oh my goodness, do I have the bandwidth? Do I have the money? Do I have the right to be able? But sometimes that's all you need. Someone to tell you, yeah, it might be rough at the beginning, right? While you sort your budget out or whatever it is, right? But it's gonna be okay, right? And so that we started this new year, thankfully, feeling so much better, right? Overwhelmed, but in a good way, because now we have all this business. I've been able to focus, right? In the last quarter, what I needed to focus on and pass all the people problems along to Xaulanda. And it's okay, right? So I'm just sharing this because this happens to all of us.
Yep.
And it's okay to talk about it, right? It doesn't make you less. It doesn't mean you don't know. No. We all suck at certain things. That's okay. And we are all
getting better every day at certain things.
Listen. I'm okay staying in the Sunday. Sorry, on certain things. No, I'm not interested in accounting. I really am not. I suck at that so much. So I just pay somebody to do that, right? And that's okay. Is that part of the mindset too? No, in just self-reflection and understanding the things that you can improve, the things that you need a lot of help with, and then the things that you're badass at, right? And that you can just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing that I have learned over my career and that I see in people who we all started nonprofits around the same time, and now we are aging into our era, becoming the leaders, like we're the grownups in the room. But I think the big thing that we have learned and come to understand a little bit better throughout all of the experiences that we've had is to be uncomfortable or to be comfortable in those uncomfortable scenarios. That there are sometimes you are going to, in business and nonprofit, whatever, you're going to be with your organization, it's going to be an uncomfortable scenario and you have to move through it. And on the other end, you will grow and it will be better. It will be bigger. Keep in mind your mission, your vision, your values. As long as you act and make decisions based on that, and the idea that because you have this dream job you've always wanted, that there's not going to be difficult times is kind of a fallacy. Like we've always, otherwise we wouldn't need vacation time. Listen, if I loved my job so much, I never wanted to leave it, I wouldn't get to go on vacation either, right? So there are supposed to be times in your job where it is difficult. Then you have to learn how to balance that. And you have to learn when to recognize a toxic scenario that's not going to change. That's the other thing. And then the thing that is occurring to me the more and more I hear this group speak, and I'm so grateful for all of your voices, is I am recognizing privilege. When Xaulanda, when you mentioned leaning in, to me, that is a marker of privilege that I have now that I have a reputation, that I have experiences where I can kind of say, listen, this is going to be a difficult time. I know we can get through it. That is a certain amount of privilege. And so the fact that we are going to take that expertise, that privilege, those experiences that we have earned, that we have been bestowed, sometimes you don't earn it, sometimes you just get it. But we're going to turn around and help other people maybe see something from the privileged end perspective too. And Chris, I love what you said about, that little petty gossiping thing, that exercise where people are being petty. What an amazing way. We love to do that stuff. That is like a natural thing. Like I will be on TikTok this afternoon just consuming a bunch of pettiness, right? And that we turn it into an exercise to help people. I think that's amazing. I'm in awe of this group. I really am. But yeah, I think the thing that is so important is just as leaders getting to understand that there are uncomfortable times in business, and we are by no means perfect people, perfect professionals. perfect in our private life. None of that. We're not claiming to be any of that. Certainly, I know I've made a ton of mistakes, but I've learned from a lot of things. And if there's anything that I could do to help other people, I'm happy to be part of this podcast to be able to do it.
Awesome. Well, on this past podcast, we're going to be perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
Which is so cool because
I
it
can
brings
do that.
it brings such a level of diversity and intrigue and passion and purpose to the conversations that we're having that I'm just like I'm super excited, you all. I'm so ready to get going. Like, let's do this. Come on, folks. Call us, write us, hop into the room. Let us know what you need help with, and let's just dive in,
I love it. And yeah, I mean, again, just in awe as well of all of you. And just, I think what we're doing here, we are, doing this as a method, a vehicle to give back, again, through the experiences that we've had, the trials and tribulations, trials by fire, in many cases. And, it's, some of you said it's okay. We can all get through this. Everything is temporary. This too shall pass. But just know that you are not alone, and we are here. Issues to Impact. Spinning off of I Have Something to Say, which again we've done as a labor of love to give people a platform, and now it's just adding more people to the table who can help impart advice, wisdom. Or even, just give a pat on the back or be a shoulder to cry on as needed. But we are, here to serve. That's I think why we all connect, why the four of us are part of each other's tribe, because we find ourselves giving back more than we, give to ourselves often. But we, hold each other accountable to show self-love and self-care. We want you all to do that as well. But, come on here and let's, talk through your issues and help you kick some ass.
Totally. And so just to conclude, because we have one more episode dedicated to Issues to Impact before the official launch, before the summer. And so in the next episode, just to give you a sneak peek before we say bye-bye, we're going to be talking about how, what is an episode going to look like? What is the format? And we might share a case scenario, like a mock, case, so that way we can learn while we're at it too, right? And feel each other out, because we're starting this thing from scratch. So even us, right? We're learning as we go, and Xaulanda, we're leaning in. We're leading everybody. Come on, Val.
Celebrate as we go along.
We're leaning into the experience. So until next time.
I hope whoever tunes in sees just this part
Exactly.
and is like, what?
Just wait in. Well, we love you all. And until the next episode, mucho amor. Mucho cariño. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. Thank you for tuning in, and tell your friends to find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to show up and speak up.